Natalie. I'm a first year psych major, and oh wait, a type of Asian I. That sounds so weird to
Just
say.
ethnicity.
Okay, but my ethnicity is Thai.
Okay. Hi, my name's Lauren. I'm a first year. My major is International Development Studies, and my ethnic background is I am fully Korean.
Hi, I'm Anika. I'm a fourth year Human Bio and Society major, and I'm half Indian and half Taiwanese. Okay, so I guess as an icebreaker into this topic, what are your thoughts on Asian representation now in media and how it was when you were growing up?
I definitely think that it's still lacking. Don't get me wrong, we've made a lot of progress, especially when you look at what awards have been presented recently, etc. But you'll see a lot of the same Asian actors and actresses in all the big major films. And so it just kind of shows that there's a very small pool to pick Asian Americans out of to be selected in major films. So I think that definitely shows how we're still lacking. And when I was growing up, especially in Disney shows and stuff, they really, really fed into stereotypes, terribly. There was one in a show called Bunked by Disney where there was this Asian girl. So stereotypical, it was absolutely ridiculous. And in the same area, there was a show called Jessie. And there was you guys already know, that's how bad it was. Yeah, there was an Indian character that was also incredibly stereotypical, and so it was really bad growing up, and it's still very lacking, even though there's been progress made.
I agree with the same thing. I mean, growing up, I feel like an example of this would be me watching Mulan growing up. I feel like that's very East Asian representation, and I'm just hey, what about me guys? What about the Southeast representation? So I think I don't know. I think now there is been some progress, but I feel they're kind of milking the same Asian actors and everything. So I feel that could be something that could definitely be changed. So yeah, what are your thoughts?
To echo what all of you guys have been saying, I also feel when I was growing up, the representation was really whack. But at least for the East Asian perspective, there was still quite a lot of representation in my opinion. Wendy Wu Homecoming Warrior.
Oh,
crazy.
Yeah, but Brenda's song was in a lot of Disney movies and shows.
Mm-hmm. And then Mulan. So but then I feel for South Asian representation, it was way less, and even now, it's less compared to East Asian. Kind of touched on this, but what was your most impactful show you watched or movie, both negatively or positively? Do you guys remember any positive representation?
Ooh, positive. Okay, the fact that was both of our natural reactions is a little bit concerning.
Yeah. Oh no, I remember when.
And very telling.
I remember when it was our first meeting, the group meeting, when we were all brainstorming what movies really represent us. All of us had a really hard time coming up with movies, and the fact that we had to sit there and think about it. So I don't know what movie positively
I mean, okay. I think it's fair to say that K-dramas have definitely entered Western media quite prominently, but that wasn't until very recently. And I definitely think that it has an association with the rise of K-pop and popularity. And so I would say BTS, for example, really went into Western media 2018 was their big boom into America, I would say. I might be totally wrong on that, please don't quote me. But that's just what I remember off the top of my head. I remember DNA was the first music video I'd ever seen from them, and that was I think around 2018. And then after that, then you see the skincare routines, the, you know, K-dramas, all of that kind of enter. But that was all, of course, very Korean focused. And I just remember growing up when I was younger, being Korean was not trendy. Like, like that was not a prideful thing for me to, or like it didn't feel prideful to say that, even though it should have. And nowadays, like I feel like if I say like, oh, I'm Korean, like more people are like, oh, you know, like I really want to visit and stuff. So I don't know, like I feel like there weren't a whole lot of like good things in my childhood until like teenager time, where like K-pop rose and K-drama rose, and so more representation through that. But before then, not good.
So like being Southeast Asian, do you feel like media with like East Asians represents you, or like I don't know, you know? Yes.
Not necessarily, just because like it's a completely like different culture. I feel like it's like the same sense of like saying like you know how like when you were younger, kind of like kids kind of stereotyping like Asians into like one group, or just either as like Chinese or Japanese. I feel like that doesn't really like represent me as much, because I'm just like, well, I'm like, that's not the right Asian. like especially like when I was a kid, like kids, you know how kids can be like, they kind of tease, they're like, oh, like you guys like eat dogs or whatever, like just like I don't know, some weird shit. Sorry. But yeah, so I feel like it's not really the same, and like I feel like I really didn't get like represented that much growing up. So I think, I mean, I guess it was nice kind of to like know that there was like some sort of like Asian representation out there. Like it wasn't just like, you know, just like white Disney princesses or like this and that. So yeah.
So other than Raya, like, is there anything
There's
else?
like there's literally nothing else
Actually?
or I don't know, for me like
That you've experienced.
that I've experienced, yeah.
Like nothing in the mainstream, right?
Not that I can think of.
Yes.
Nothing mainstream.
Yeah.
I don't think so.
Yeah.
Like, let's talk about shows with like majority white cast. So basically, every other show like on this planet. Do you feel like those shows like represented you? Like, could you see yourself in them in any ways?
White shows.
Yeah, like say you're watching like Good Luck Charlie when you're 9 years old.
Mm.
Okay, I'm sorry, but like they kind of ate that up. I can't even lie. Like,
Ooh. Yeah. There was I feel like in the majority of those shows, there was always that like one token, like person of color that was like their best friend, or like honestly most of the time it wasn't even the best friend. It was like the one friend of reason that like was never heard. And like she showed up like every few episodes. And honestly, it probably was to fulfill some sort of diversity requirement. Like I swear.
yeah.
Are you spitting facts?
Yeah. So like genuinely, like while I enjoyed those shows, like don't get me wrong, I loved watching them. I was a very big Victorious fan.
I was a Victoria's girly too.
And I will always be a fan of old Disney. Like old Disney over new Disney any day. However, I definitely there were times where the reason why I wanted to be white, I feel like could have stemmed from the fact that I watched so many shows where it was purely just white people who were the main characters. Because I didn't feel like I was a main character. Like, people always talk about, like, oh, be a main character in your own story, you know? But I never felt like I was a main character because I had never watched a piece of media where a person who looked like me could be a main character. They were always the side character. So, yeah, that's kind of my take on that question. That's a really depressing answer, sorry, but it's the reality.
It's okay. I think I have another similar answer where it's like say with like Good Luck Charlie, I feel like those shows like really caught my attention because it depicted like the perfect white American family, and it was nothing compared to like my immigrant family. So that idea of like being like a good perfect family where there's no like a lot of issues like going on. So I feel like that. Yeah, I feel like that's a big part of it. Oh yeah, I think another thing is like some shows like fail to like represent just like immigrant families sometimes, because I feel like it's a really big difference in how like Americans and like Asian immigrants like raise their children. So
Yeah.
any thoughts?
Yeah, I like completely agree with you, especially like low-key those shows ate, like as we all
Yeah.
mentioned. But you know, like the family dynamic was not the same as like the family dynamic I had at home. Now on to Past Lives, an iconic movie.
Oh my
our
God.
bestie has not watched.
Oh, wait.
You need to
Oh, I have to explain.
yeah, you have to
Okay,
let the
well,
audience
guys-
know you're gonna watch the movie.
Hey audience, I actually have not watched Past Lives, so maybe these two will convince me to watch it. So you guys can just yap about it, and I'm gonna just follow along.
Okay, I think I was the person who originally brought up Past Lives because it is my probably all-time favorite movie, which is saying a lot because I love watching movies. Okay, I think it was a beautiful representation of Korean American. And it was like the movie itself was bilingual, but there was barely any type of dialogue at all. Like there was incredibly little dialogue, and I usually lose a lot of patience with those movies. Like I'm a yapper. I like to see people yap, you know? But this movie had very little dialogue, but the way that they were able to convey the emotion, convey the Korean American experience, convey the idea of inyeon, like the whole concept of it, they were able to show that without much dialogue, and it was all through pure action and the way that it was directed. But it was all still very bilingual. And I think the actors and actresses did a wonderful job in I guess playing their role in a bilingual way with such limited dialogue, because that must have been very difficult. Because the script does go from Korean to American, or Korean to English, Korean to English. But because there's so little of it, it's very easy to just kind of dismiss that. But it was done beautifully. And I just realized that you don't know the concept of inyeon.
Yeah, I was gonna ask, like, okay, what's the context?
So basically, the film revolves around a woman and her, I guess, like childhood lover, best friend, and there's a idea of, or there's a concept called inyeon in Korean culture, which it's kind of like fate and destiny combined in one. Like it's not exactly destiny, it's not exactly fate, it's almost like a little bit of both. And it's the idea where if you like have some sort of connection with someone in your present life, that means that you had some sort of connection with them in the past life.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, so like every person that you encounter, every person that you really develop a whatever type of relationship, whether it's platonic, romantic, familial, whatever, they had some sort of impact in your past life. So that's kind of the concept of inyeon. And the film revolves around that, where there was like a childhood, feel free to correct me, because it's been a little while since I watched it, and she watched it recently. But like there was like a childhood pairing that were like best friends slash like kind of romantic lovers a little bit, but you know you're a child, how romantic lover can you be? And they lose connection because she moves to America and he's in Korea. But they reconnect as adults. But by then, like their years had gone by, they'd lived different lives. So like that's kind of it's a film of kind of like closure, maturing, and kind of learning about self-discovery, that type of stuff. So yeah.
I should watch it, guys.
No, you
have
should.
to.
Yeah.
I know, I should go watch it.
So yeah, I just watched this movie this past weekend because of this podcast, and it was crazy. I've never seen like Asian representation in that way before, since the characters were like so nuanced. They had like such emotional depth. Like I've literally never seen that before in like an American film. Like in Bollywood movies, like obviously like I've seen like that done before, but like it was different because like a lot of the movie was in English, and like this movie I think is for an American audience, so it was interesting to see like the depiction of Asian in like non-conventional ways that like really break the stereotypes of how like an American audience would like imagine a Korean or a Korean American to be. And I really liked Nora's character. She was like so real, and like low-key she was kind of funny, but she really showed like the entire human experience. And I'm not Korean, but like I could like really like still understand what she was going through and like her connections with people, because like it's universal the way that they portrayed it. Especially like there was this one scene, I don't know if you remember this, but after she reconnects with Haesung,
A childhood best friend.
okay, I'm like trying to keep up. Okay. She like talks to him and like spends the day with him, and then she comes back to her husband, and then she was like,
He's American.
oh yeah,
Yeah, he's American.
She was like, you know, when I was with him, I felt really American. He was really Korean, and that was like an interesting like thing I've seen. Like I've never seen it before, because they made like that distinction between Korean and Korean American, and how like there's like a different culture even within that. And you know, I think it was just really impactful. Yeah.
Yeah, like to go off of what you were saying, as a person who, like, I think it's fair to say half of my life I grew up in Korea, half of my life I grew up here. But the later half of my life, I've grown up in America, so I think it's fair to call me incredibly whitewashed. But it does still sting when, like, I meet, like, I guess what you would call Koreans, and they're like, oh my god, you're the most Korean American person I've ever met, and I'm like, because I am Korean American, you know? Like, but they say it with, or some people say it with a negative connotation, and it's like, just because I, you know, grew up with a more American, you know, upbringing background doesn't make me any less Korean. Like, and I mean that in a way of like a level of respect. Like, sure, I'm not as fluent with the language. Sure, I probably know less of the culture, less of the, you know, mannerisms, etc. But that doesn't take away from the fact that, like, I shouldn't have to feel bad about that. Like, sure, like, there's some moments where I wish I kept up with my fluency, etc. But it's not something to be, I guess, ashamed of. And then this actually reminds me, there was a scene in the movie where she, or her American husband, brings up the fact that she sleep talks. And he was like, did you know that you sleep talk in Korean? And she was like, no, I don't know that, or I didn't know that. And he's like, yeah, it kind of scares me sometimes because it's a reminder that there's a whole nother side of you that I don't know. And he's made attempts to learn Korean, like he's trying to get to that side of her. But for him, it's a reminder that like there's another part of her that he's never been able to tap into. But I'm so sorry, what was his name again?
I have no idea.
No, Haesung, yeah. I was trying to remember Haesung.
Oh, okay.
But Haesung, her, you know, Korean best friend, like he's able to tap into that. But that's the only part of her that he's able to tap into, you know? Like he's not there for the American experience because he didn't grow up in America. He was always in Korea. So like it's very interesting, and like there's a quote that Haesung says where it's like, I love you because you're you, and to me, you're a person who leaves, but to him, you're a person who stays.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow,
Yeah.
Guys, I'm gonna go back and watch her after.
And like it was those type of quotes that like really hit home for me, and I was like, wow, like, and like you said about like the film being universal, what I really enjoyed about the way that it was narrated as well is the fact that, of course, as a, you know, Korean American, watching this movie I felt very special because, you know, I felt that extra kind of, I guess, representation to it. But because the way that it was presented and the way it was narrated, it's still applicable to other minorities, where in the fact where, you know, today I felt so Korean, or I felt so American talking to this person who's always lived in Korea. Like, you could say the same thing about any other ethnic background. So that's another part of the film I really loved. And I'm really glad that you spoke about that, and the fact that you don't have to be Korean to enjoy the beauty of this film. And that's what I really liked, because it's available to, you know, all audiences. So yeah, I really liked that.
Yeah, and I would like to add on, like, I watched the movie with my mom, and she like speaks English, but like not really. Like, she's Chinese, so like, you know, her native tongue is Chinese, and it was with like English subtitles, and she couldn't read that fast. but even like when she came out of the movie, she was like, yo. And I was like, wait, were you like able to read the subs that fast? Because like I thought you weren't. And she was like, no, but like I could like see the emotion and like feel the feelings even without speaking the language. And that's just like a testament to like their acting and like how the film was directed, because it truly was like one of the most beautiful like pieces of media I've seen. Like some of the shots, like as you mentioned, like bro, like they're like filming like water or like just like reflections and stuff. And, like normally I would be like, bro, like let's fast forward. Like I don't need to be seeing this, but like in that movie, it like really grounds you, and like in those moments, like you're feeling what the characters are feeling. It's just great. And I don't know if you remember, like at the end of the movie, they were like at a bar and like they were talking, and then the white husband is like just looking at Haesung and Nora talking, and I feel like that was just so emotional because like in his face you could see like defeat, kind of like he couldn't like get into that part of Nora, as you were mentioning. And I've never seen acting like that before. That's all I gotta say.
That was like devastatingly beautiful.
Yeah.
I'm probably gonna cry watching this.
No, I did.
Watching you guys
I'm
cry
telling you
watching
right
this
now,
movie, 'cause
catch
I'm
your
a-
tissues.
I'm a crier. I tend to cry.
Girl,
So
I literally, I filmed myself. Okay, I here's the thing. I never film myself crying. Never. I am not. I am not that girl. I don't post, snaps of me crying on my private story. Like I'm not that type of person. However.
You're like, this time it was different, actually.
Not only was I sobbing in the movie theater, I proceeded to sob walking out of the movie theater, proceeded to sob in the car, and then when we went, and then by the time that we got back home, because my mom was driving, we watched it together. Once I got back home, I proceeded to cry to my father. Like, and I filmed myself crying in the car because it was absolutely ridiculous. Like, I could not stop. Like, it just kept going. Like, I've never cried like that over any piece of literature, media, nothing. Never cried like that. And there's another equally, or at least I think, equally devastating and heartbreaking scene where Nora says goodbye to Haesung, and she walks back to the apartment with her American husband, and she starts sobbing to the husband.
That broke me.
Guys, you're just setting me up to cry.
And like I knew that Haesung and Nora were not meant to be together. Like that was the correct ending, and that was the most real ending. But it was still so devastating, because like I think a small part of you still roots for the ideal fairy tale fantasy where Haesung and Nora just run off together.
It's like what could have been,
Yeah. But in reality, you have to mourn what could have been in order to keep what you had.
Spinning bar?
No, because I could write AP essays about this movie, y'all. Like it's just so devastating, and it's just very real. And you don't wish that it was a different ending. Because like how sometimes you watch a movie and it's a sad ending, and you're like, oh, like they should have been together, or like they should have at least kissed or something, But like this movie, you walk away satisfied, but also like
broken.
Yeah, like your heart is ripped out of your chest, but in the best way possible, and in the realest way possible. So it's a story. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
You
guys
watch
are
it.
like preparing me.
Do you have any like future thoughts?
Future
Yeah.
thoughts. I will be watching this movie, so I'll get back to you next episode. I'll film myself if I cry in it, and so you guys can put that in the podcast if I end up crying. So
I would show the video, but I would not recover from that. So.
Oh, okay, it's okay. I don't mind. I'll probably cry.
Actually, I think I can play the audio because I do say something while I'm crying.
Okay.
Yeah, you guys can like move on to the next like prompted question while I search for that, because it might take me a little bit. If we want to move to Never Have I Ever.
Or I could talk about how you were talking about like being like Korean American, not like Korean enough. I think I feel like the same way, I guess, like now. Because I feel like ever since like coming here, I feel so whitewashed, guys. Like it's like super weird, because I feel like I've been like speaking my native tongue less. I've been speaking like more English. just overall like different than how I was living like before, like in high school. Because I would just like be speaking Thai a lot. I don't know. I just think that like it's so weird because I went to like this like meeting for I don't know, like a club thing for like Thai students, and I felt like super different from like everybody because they were all like
So it was like student associations.
yeah, most people were like international students, and like low key, why are they were treating me so like different. Like they're like, oh, like you're like you grew up here. I'm like, yeah. They're like, oh.
Oh.
Yeah, I was like, oh, what do you mean by that?
Yeah, what do you mean, oh?
What do you mean, oh?
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's I stopped going to club meetings after that. But like, no, because everybody was like super like I don't know, everybody was like super cliquey, kind of like in their own like international student type of world. But I feel like it's just like a weird thing every time like I go to Thailand, and like you could definitely tell I'm American, just like my mannerisms, like sometimes like how the way I talk. But like you said before, I feel like that doesn't really necessarily strip me of my like Thai identity. So
When you go to street markets, your mom says,
Oh,
don't
no,
speak.
Don't speak.
Don't speak to the vendors.
Unless you're gonna
Don't do it.
You're gonna get the American tax.
Yeah. Okay,
that's-
I found the audio.
Okay, you
If
too.
we wanna. Here, I'll play it close. That's my mom laughing.
Oh no.
So yeah, that's the emotional wreckage that the,
Oh my
the film
gosh.
did to me.
Okay, I better be in shambles like that.
Yeah.
You will be.
Okay.
Moving on to Never Have I
Never.
Ever.
Okay, just dive right into it.
Okay. So, what are our like thoughts like right off the bat? Like, did we like it? Did we hate it? I mean, what did TikTok tell you about it?
Yeah. Okay, for a little bit of background, I have not actually fully watched like a full episode of the show, but I have pretty much like followed along through TikTok. Like, you know those videos where it's like half the screen is
Yeah,
the
and then, like,
episode, and
and
the
then, like,
other
cooking
half is
something.
yeah, or like it's like some sort of like satisfying video. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've been watching
Okay, those be getting me too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But just based off of clips, cringy.
Okay, yeah,
However-
I can't even lie, yes,
Yeah.
but like it's cringy to the point where it's like you could still watch it.
Yeah,
like, you
yeah.
would still watch it.
Like, it's
so.
cringy to where I can still enjoy the show. There were some moments where I was like, I don't think, like, it almost feels like the director thought that it ate, but I don't think that it did, at least for me.
Yeah,
like,
no,
I think-
agree. I
Yeah, like, there were scenes where I was like, okay, they nibbled, but the plate was not clear.
There were still crumbs. There
Yeah.
were still crumbs
Not
left
even
on the plate.
crumbs. There were some main entrees left. However, there were some other scenes where I was like, okay, like this is good. So it's very, at least for me, it felt pretty hit or miss. Like, I would not personally binge it, but I can understand why someone else would. And this is coming from a person who's not of, you know, an Indo background by any means. So that's just, I guess, my take from my point of view.
Do you know the characters?
Well, the main character's name is Davy.
Yeah.
Her mom and her grandma are hilarious.
Mm-hmm.
Ben.
Okay,
Getting
wait, are you
bullied.
team Ben or team Paxton?
Paxton's more attractive.
Okay.
I'm just gonna say it right off the bat.
Yeah.
Like I am all for the mom dissing Ben. I think it's so funny. Like when she's like, oh, like I didn't even notice that he was there. When
I know, I just want to $100.
yeah, like I do find that funny, but I don't know enough about each character to say like which one I'm rooting for, like plot line wise or character wise. So I don't really have a take there.
Yeah, Paxton is hot, but I'm rooting for Ben because Ben treated her better. How about
Okay.
you?
Okay, Slay.
You know, low key, Team Ben.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. How do you want to start this off?
Let's think.
Okay. I mean, like the show starts off with like Davy. Hold on. It's been a while too since I watched
Yeah,
this.
I watched this like when did the last season come out? I don't know. That's when
I don't know. It was okay. Well, I know the first season starts off with like Davy's dad like dying,
Yeah.
and she, yeah, and like she gets like paralyzed through her legs or something. Like she was in like such a state of okay. For context, she was like playing like at her like orchestra concert or something.
Oh, and
yeah,
he had like a heart
And
attack.
he had a heart
or
attack,
something.
and like she had to like experience and go through all that, and she experienced like a state of shock that like she lost like feel of her like legs or whatever.
Wow.
So yeah, I don't know.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so that was the first thing.
I mean, but then she saw Paxton, and then she like regained her like.
Right? Was that?
Yeah.
Was
like,
that crazy? Oh wait, no. Wait, I
That's
think so.
crazy.
Wait, yeah, wait.
Yeah.
Wait, okay, it was this scene where like I think she
Oh,
was
he
at
took
like
his shirt off or something, and she
Really?
was like, "Yo."
I thought it was a
or maybe
swim meet. I thought it was a swim meet.
not. I don't even know.
I
She
don't
just got
remember.
her
Okay,
leg
well,
power
I
back.
think she saw Paxton or something. She thought he was like really hot, and she stood up and got up from her wheelchair.
Oh yeah.
And
Wait
they
a
started
minute.
walking.
Hold
Yeah.
on.
Yeah.
Are we
I know.
sure that the connection that her and Paxton have isn't just from trauma bonding? Like, or in association with trauma?
Not really, because Paxton didn't. Okay, the story was like I think at first she wanted to hook up. She just wanted to hook up with Paxton. Just,
Okay.
Yeah, she just wanted to hook up with him.
Okay.
And she asked him like straight up, like caught him at like a time after school, and straight up was like, "Oh, like, do you want to hook up?" And then like I don't know.
Huh.
Yeah, this girl.
Wow, that's a
something
cold
else.
turkey.
Yeah,
That
this girl's
is
something
bold.
else. And then he was like, "Yeah, I'm down." Sorry.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, no, 'cause
That's crazy.
yeah, I think
You're telling me this is not cringy? Like, come
okay,
on.
but it
But
is.
like,
But like, it's
it's
so
good.
bad. That, like, have you seen Riverdale?
Yes.
It's like exactly. It's
But I
like,
haven't seen like a same thing where I've seen TikToks and nothing.
yeah,
else.
yeah. It was horrible. I'm never gonna watch it again. But anyways, so I think she does. They go through with that, or no, they didn't go through with that. Like she goes over to his house, and then like she ends up bailing on him or something.
Oh.
And then but then she told her friends that she hooked up
Oh
with
yeah,
him.
she was telling everyone like, "I'm gonna get railed by Paxton tonight."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
that's
then-
so embarrassing. Why would you?
And then it spread around the whole school. Yeah, it spread around the whole school.
Please, that's
That's embarrassing. And then like
Why?
he confronted her like, hey, like why are you telling people we're hooking up when we're not? And then she just goes through this like whole thing. I don't even know. That's the parts that I remember
Yeah.
from it.
You remember what I remember? Like you're like jogging my memory.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
But they go through this like crazy adventure together. Like Paxton's like, never talk to me again, blah blah blah. And then they get like paired up together again, I think. Yeah, they get paired up together again because like she has to like help him study for college. Oh yeah, because he's trying to get into like, or I think he ended up going to ASU. But, like,
Wait,
he needs-
no. She like, there was like that coyote thing, and then he got hit by a car.
I'm sorry, this is so unorganized. Like this is just
Hit by a car? Where?
Okay, wait. Oh,
Where is this
okay,
going?
Okay,
He lost his swimming scholarship, right? So then she had to tutor him.
Oh yeah. Sorry, this is really unorganized. We'll get to the gist of things like later, but we're just like giving you like a little oh, this is just the first season. Mind you, this is just the first season.
Isn't there something about her like applying to only Ivies? And
That
I
was
guess-
second season.
Yeah, then
Yeah,
she
that
got
was-
waitlisted by Princeton.
Mhm.
Realizes how screwed she is. Yeah, that I do know, but
Because she was so real for that. Because like.
no.
No, but why
would
she-
you apply to
Okay,
only Ivies?
This
I
is
know,
really
like,
unorganized.
So many like unhinged like Indians, like their mommies be like,
Okay.
Okay,
"No,
yeah,
like,
okay.
only apply to like UCLA, Berkeley, and like Ivy Leagues." So like,
Okay.
I get where she was
I
coming from,
understand.
but like
Okay.
low key, no.
No, but I remember that scene where her like mom yelled at her.
Yeah,
after,
her mom
though.
yelled at her too.
Because she was like, she found out. Oh, sorry. She found out that like Davy didn't get into Princeton.
Oh yeah, she
right?
called her stupid.
Yeah, she called her stupid, but that scene was
But
pretty
that's-
emotional though. I mean, like, I feel like I got pretty emotional, but like,
Yeah.
I feel like the mom was kind of real for that because why didn't she like?
Listen, personally, if I had a daughter who I let take full control of her like college application process in current day, like with how ridiculous it is nowadays, I'd be pissed too if she only
Yeah,
applied to
myself,
Ivies. Hello, like
Yeah.
at least throw in, something. But I don't know, like. I feel like if you grow up in an immigrant household, you grow some pretty thick skin when it comes to like those types of conversations. So I did find the emotion in that scene, just from an immigrant background, to be a little bit like I feel like it wasn't that deep in the fact that she called her stupid. Like, cause I feel like there's a difference when it comes to immigrant households in like the level of insults. For example, like if my mom ever told me that she was like ashamed of me, you will see me sobbing in the parking lot, Versus like if she just says, "Oh, that was a stupid thing to do," or if that was like a dumb thing to do, I'd be like, "Yeah, probably." Like like I feel like there's a difference between like like, "Oh, that wasn't a very smart thing to do," versus like, you know, like I'm not proud of you, or like I'm not, or I'm ashamed of you. You know, like
Yeah,
I feel
I
like
get what you
there's a
mean.
very big difference in those, but I don't know. Maybe I'm just being a little too cold.
No, I feel like that's perfectly like like encapsulates like immigrant families.
Yeah.
Because sometimes like those just like at least like my family says really out of pocket things, but like doesn't realize that they're out of pocket because it's just like just how they talk to each other. Like sometimes I'll come home and they'll be like, "Did you gain weight?" And I'm like, "Oh, guys, no hello, no how are you?"
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
But that's a whole nother level of
That's,
toxicity.
I know that's another topic,
That's a
guys.
different
That's
thing.
another topic.
Yeah.
But okay, but yeah, that whole scene, I don't know, I think it was pretty emotional because like not emotional, just like in a sense that like when I was like doing college applications, I feel like I took like took control of things and I didn't really ask like my parents for help at all. So just for like Davy to do that, I don't know, I feel like it kind of hit home for me just for like her mom to call her all these things, but like I get where her mom was coming from though. So yeah.
Plus, this is all coming from a perspective of college students. Like, we know what the process is like. We know and like, I think there's also a very big difference in the fact that, like, for example, some immigrant households, like, their parent, or kind of immigrant households, really depends on how you define it. Like, some parents, they did go to American colleges, or they did go to big, you know, colleges back in their home country. So they know what the process is like, and so they're hyper fixated on it. We all know the stereotype of like, oh, you have to do all these extracurriculars, all these perfect grades, et cetera, in order to even be considered at a school. But then there's also the other side of the story where there are like immigrant families with parents that never went to college, or they did go to college, just not in America, and so it's a totally different process. Maybe just not as prestigious, like, and so they don't know enough about the application cycle, so they just leave it up to their kids. And so now their kids are carrying on that huge burden of like, okay, now I have to make my parents' immigration completely worth it. So like there's two very stark contrasting, I guess, polarizing sides. And so I guess Never Have I Ever did represent one side pretty well, where it's like when it's up to just the kid, the parents aren't involved at all, it can lead to results that aren't as concrete, stable. Because I do think that it was a little bit of plot armor in the fact that, you know, she got waitlisted to one school and then she ended up getting in. Yeah. Well, we all know that waitlist admits are, like, the rates are pretty low. Like, it's pretty difficult to get off the waitlist. So, you know, like, in reality, if you only got waitlisted from one, gear up for CC. Like, I don't know what to tell you, you know?
I don't know, baby. You should have been a little smarter about that. Yeah. Let's see. What else?
Okay, let me ask you guys a question. As people who watch this show, what's one thing that you really loved about this show? Like, whether it was a relatability thing, whether it was something that you just truly felt was portrayed well, or whatever, something positive, and something that you wish they had done differently, or just better.
I think one thing they did well in the second season was like they portrayed like what is it, like an Indian guy, like as in like an attractive way, because usually like there was like this character that like Davy was like going to date or whatever, like in the second season, like they were like set up by their moms, but I think it was interesting, like I kind of saw this on TikTok too though, but I thought it was interesting how like it was like an Indian male lead kind of in a sense that like he was portrayed in like an attractive way, and like girls were like coming after him instead of like the nerdy like stereotypical like Indian guy like any other show. So I thought that was pretty interesting.
That's a nice thing to see differently.
Yeah. One thing I didn't like kind of like what you said, like I feel like they didn't portray teens very well, and like how our mannerisms and how we talk. So maybe that's the one thing that like
there were some cringy lines.
There were some cringy lines, and I'm just like, that's not slang like, at all. So yeah, I think that's one thing they could have done better to make the show like a lot more better. So yeah.
Yeah. No, I completely agree with you. Like, I love Miss Mindy Kaling, but
she's a little questionable
but
sometimes.
like, she needs better writers.
Yeah.
No, I looked at like the writers. Like a lot of them were young, so like I don't know where the issue is. But like that's like a different topic.
Maybe
but,
they overthought it.
Like, I don't know because it's just sorry.
Yeah. Okay, so like something that I thought the show did really well, like all throughout, was show well, I mean, it was kind of exaggerated, but I felt like it showed like real like family relationships, especially like in an Asian American context. Like her relationship with her mom was like not pretty. It wasn't linear. They had like a lot of fights. I think at
They
one
had
point.
beef. They were beefing.
Yeah.
They were beefing like a lot.
She like left her house, right? Like at the end of season 1, I think she like ran away and went to bed.
Oh yeah, she got mad at her mom or over it was over something I think, and then like she went over to like Ben's house to stay at his house, and I'm just like I don't know how they let that slide. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, but like low-key I felt like that was like a pretty real portrayal because like I don't know, I've never seen like a messy Indian family like that on screen before. And then for negatives, well, I mean, there's a lot, but well, something I've heard from like other Indians is like they say like the language isn't like spoken correctly, and like I don't know, I'm not like that type of Indian, like the Indian in the show, so like I don't know, but like a lot of people, their main complaint is like I don't know, like a lot of like cultural things, like they were just like
the verbiage wasn't correct.
yeah, and like some like things like they kind of missed the mark. So then all the girlies were like, "Bro, where's my representation? I thought we were getting it here." And yeah,
that's very fair. Too. So I like how they showed that the fights aren't they're not cute.
I think on like a little bit of a more positive note, I remember in like the second season, I think when it was like Davey's mom like kind of stood up for her. So like the situation was that like the Indian guy, I already forgot his name. I don't remember his name. At first, Davey thought he was gonna be like some nerdy guy that like her mom's friend introduced her to, right? But then he turns out being hot. So she got like a different. Des?
was it this? I thought they made some
He's
nerdy
Des?
jokes.
Okay, yeah, I guess it's Des.
My bad.
But basically, Des is like telling, or like he was like, his mom was telling him to like break up with Davey, right? Because she thought she had like crazy like mental issues. But
Oh, I've seen that scene.
yeah. So she was telling him to like break up with her because, or like stop seeing her because
And the mom like steps.
Yeah, the mom steps in.
Yeah.
Or like, okay, yeah, so, or like Ben overheard this conversation, told Davey, then Davey confronted Des at like a coffee shop and spilled like coffee all over him, but it was iced coffee, like that. Yeah, it was iced coffee. And basically like his mom tried to confront her at Davey's house, and like her mom kind of stood up for her. And then at first Davey thought that like her mom was gonna like yell at her or like say that like she's in trouble for doing this, but like her mom actually stood up for her. But like I thought like that perspective was interesting because I think her mom was saying something along the lines like, oh, like my daughter isn't crazy, she just needs help recovering from like a traumatic event, which was like her dad dying. So I think that kind of like got me emotional too, just because it's like, oh wow, it's like she understands that like she's like Davey's been through trauma, and like she's actually like getting help, like she's in therapy, and she understands that like, oh, like she actually is like getting help and she's not crazy. So I think it was nice to see like an Asian mother standing up for their child, and because of like their mental health issues. So
Yeah, low-key, I forgot about that, but that's like such an important point. Like we've been clowning on Davey this whole time, but like I think we need to like show her some grace. Now that I remembered, bro was literally grieving. She was in therapy, so like I guess she was going through like the whole roller coaster of emotions, and like, you know, I mean obviously like they made things whack for like TV, but like I think that like it could be like good representation for someone like going through grief to see like a bunch of chaotic like different emotions expressed. So I think that was like another good thing the show did. But like on another note, I was reading this, and then apparently there was a scene where there was like some kind of Indian festival, and there's like people doing like a Bollywood dance, and Davey is like watching them being like, ew, like imagine they did that like somewhere else, like what? So I don't know, just like self-hating your race. Like, do you guys have any experiences with that, or
I don't know.
I do. Okay, I think this is like, I don't know if this was like experience for you guys, but like I used to bring like homemade like lunches to school like as a kid, And obviously, it's like, you know, it's not the same as the little Lunchables everybody else is having.
Which those are hella toxic.
Right?
Like,
Those are hella toxic.
those are not good for you.
Yeah. But like every time I would like bring food from home, like everybody would always like make fun of me, and like I felt super bad. Or like, well, now thinking back, like I would tell my mom like, oh, like you don't have to make me lunch anymore. Like all the kids at school are making fun of me. And like I think looking back now, like that's so sad.
That's
like,
so heartbreaking.
That's so
as a
heartbreaking.
mom to
Like I
hear,
can't like
yeah.
I can't imagine how like my mom was feeling at that time. But like as a little kid, I didn't grasp that because I'm just like, well, the kids are making fun of me. Like I'm not gonna bring that because I don't know. I think for a long time that I don't know. I don't think I ever had like the. I don't think I've ever had the thought that like, oh, like I wanted to be white, but there were some times I'm just like, damn, like I don't really want to be Asian.
Yeah.
So.
No, I hear you.
Another thing. Oh, I used to not speak like Thai in public sometimes, because like sometimes people will be like, "What the fuck are you doing?" Sorry. Sometimes like people will be like, "Whoa, like what are you speaking?" But like now I feel like I'm just like all loud, like out and about, saying like speaking my native language. So I think that's another thing. Any experiences you guys have?
I mean, I was gonna talk about school lunches too.
Oh,
yeah.
okay. You got experience.
Well, like I just remember like I would bring like stuff that my mom would make, and let me tell you, like those things ate. Like she's a great cook, and she packed those with so much love. And I don't know if I ever told her to not pack it for me because I was very aware of how heartbreaking that must, you know, feel to a mom. But there were definitely moments where I contemplated it because. You know, like it was like you were cool if you had Lunchables, a fruit roll up, and like
a Capri Sun.
Yeah, like that was what everyone, you know,
like the stereotypical like lunch.
Exactly.
You know? Or like going on like
White
a field
girl
trip.
lunch.
Yeah, like,
Yeah.
white girl lunch.
Yeah. But like, if you look back on it, like I really do thank my mom for feeding me the way that she did because like those things they're not healthy. Like that's not what kids should be eating. So. Like looking back, I'm very grateful, but I definitely did feel a lot of shame as a little kid. Like I remember one specific time I was sitting in the back of the class and I had a canteen, and in the canteen there were like pot stickers or dumplings, whatever you want to call them. And also I did not know that they were called pot stickers.
Same. Until I went to Costco and like.
Yeah. Like I didn't know that they were called pot stickers until like middle school when like a white girl one time said like, "Oh my god, are those pot stickers?" And I was like.
What are you talking about?
Like personally, I call it mandu, but apparently it's pot stickers. But anyway, like I opened the canteen and like obviously there's like you know like the smell of dumplings, and someone like turned around, they're like, "What is that smell?" And I was like, "Oh," and I closed it immediately. So it's like those kind of experiences that really do stick with you, and influence your behavior and how you know. So that was really depressing.
For me, I don't really like think I have those experiences like here since when I was growing up, I grew up in like a really like predominantly Asian town. So like I literally thought everyone was Asian. So like I don't know, it wasn't like weird being Asian.
A lot. There's a lot to cover.